Good morning, this is Dr. Colosimo. It is immediately after the Memorial Day weekend, and I come to you this morning with some thoughts about the theories of childhood, of lifespan development that begin now in these chapters and will continue throughout the summer course. As you know, we have had some difficulty with the website and the connection with the bookstore between purchasing Fiore and Mooney or just Fiore. So if you have purchased Mooney, you will be receiving full credit for that, and we will only be focused on Fiore for this summer course. I want to bring to your attention week 2, Theories of Development, Interpreting the Lifespan and the Learning Guide. The work must be completed by 3 o'clock on Friday, as you know. And as you review the readings in Fiore, we'll be looking at Freud, Erikson, Piaget, Vygotsky, and Maslow. The theories of Dewey and Montessori were found only in Mooney. I'd like to begin with some thoughts about Lev Vygotsky. One thing that he shared with us from the early part of his theory was that learning and development are interrelated, he said, from the child's very first days of life. Vygotsky was born in Russia and became very interested in cognitive and language development and their relationships to learning. He discovered that in a group of children at the same level, some children were able to learn with a help while other children were not. He died young at the age of 38 from tuberculosis. His research was both qualitative and quantitative. He watched as learning took place when children played. Language and development built on one another. He indicated the importance of interaction with teachers and with peers in advancing knowledge. He noted the concept of the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. He defined it as the distance between the most difficult task a child can do alone and the most difficult task a child can do with help. Scaffolding was the assistance a teacher or another offered to a child. And how he observed children carefully. The children will grow taller, he said, without my help, but not smarter or kinder. He provided many opportunities for children to work together. Lev Vygotsky. Jean Piaget was a stage theorist, and he looked at 4 stages of development. Piaget's work was considered work in cognitive understanding. And in Piaget's work, he looked at 4 stages. The first stage that Piaget looked at, he called sensory motor. And this stage was most important to Piaget as he began studying his own children and noticed how they moved, how they reacted using their 5 senses. He looked at the next stage that he called the pre-operational period, the next stage, the concrete operational period, and finally he looked at the final stage of development where children were much more advanced. They began to think hypothetically, to think critically and actually to rethink the brain. Piaget's work has been criticized over the years, in some cases because he studied his own children, but in most cases because his population was very, very small. If we think about Erik Erikson, one of our next theorists, he was also a stage theorist, and one would call him a psychosocial theorist. And he looked at 8 distinct stages in which a child and then an adult had to move through psychosocial crises before moving into the next stage. So in infancy, the child would be in the stage and in the crisis of trust versus mistrust. And the basic virtue of the stage, Erikson called hope. The next stage, autonomy versus shame. The child is in early childhood, from 1.5 to 3. The third stage, initiative versus guilt. The basic virtue, purpose. And we would call this the stage of play, from 3 to 5. Fourth stage, industry versus inferiority. The child leaves with competence in the school age, 5 to 12. Stage 5, ego identity versus role confusion. The basic virtue being fidelity. And the student is in the age of adolescence. Next stage, intimacy versus isolation. The virtue of love, seen in young adulthood. Next stage, generativity versus stagnation. The basic virtue of care. And we're in adulthood here. And finally, the last stage in Erikson's theory, ego integrity versus despair. The individual is mature, 65 years of age and older, and the individual leaves with wisdom. The last theorist I wish to bring to your attention is Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. We'll call it a pyramid diagram, and the hierarchy is noted in Fiore. The first stage for Maslow, biological and physiological needs. The next stage, moving up, safety needs. Next, love and belonging. The next, esteem needs. And finally, self-actualization, the stage in which Maslow believes few people are able to arrive, personal growth and fulfillment. As you read through Fiore and consider your own life's journey, please begin to understand lifespan development in terms of these basic theoretical positions. Once again, you will be thinking about your journal that will be due on Friday before 3, and your response to another individual's journal in this course. Thank you for joining us, and I wish you a blessed week ahead.